You may find this picture interesting. It's a footpath between Alresford Creek, and the footpath goes along following the creek all the way to Wivenhoe, which is also a sailing, boating fraternity. Very nice village. But this is the Alresford Creek side, and the what's interesting about this photo is the steel structure you see to the left is a termination point for a conveyor belt. Well, it's not conveyor belt, it was a steel hawser that went round a big wheel at the end. And on this continuous loop hawser, there was about a dozen half-ton buckets of sand that came down from the quarry out of shot. And if you look to the right of the notice board, you can just see a sort of pylon with a couple of wheels in the air there. Well, there were several of these up in fields, and the buckets come down loaded up with wet sand, and the weight of half a dozen or so buckets coming down was enough to transport half a dozen empty buckets going back up. Now, the man at the end engaged and disengaged these buckets, a very interesting system I'll do a video on one day, which operated a tipping mechanism, and the buckets tipped the sand into the barges which was moored at the end. This could only be done, of course, at high tide. The steel post you see roughly in the middle of the, or to the side of the path with like a square on it, that's the remains of a gate, and the gate was closed when this was in operation to safeguard people getting drowned with wet sand and the like. But it does nothing, and it's quite substantial, and I thought I might put it to use, especially as it's a bootable sort of looking area and there's a seat there, etc. So I thought I would make a tide indicator to show the state of the tide. I'm always looking up to see when the next high tide is. So this is what I did. Now if I get rid of this picture, that one, yes I have. I've got a couple of pieces of thick wood, about 3 inches to 2.5 3 inches thick, and I've glued them together. And I've placed a piece of aluminium laminate around the circumference and glued and pinned and G-clamped it together, as you can see, and left this to dry overnight. And then the next morning I put this disc in my lathe. Well, it's a metal lathe, not a wood lathe, so it made an awful mess. But I was able to surface the face of it and put a depression for the dial, and ready to receive a Perspex cover. Get rid of that. There we go. This is the Perspex cover that goes on top. You can see there's multiple screw holes. This is necessary in order to get a good fit to the surface, as we don't want weather to get in. And then to the top of the picture is a circle of white laminate, which I shall engrave, and the arrows were hand carved. I used a bandsaw to cut into this arrangement, to cut a square out in the middle, and this was housed the movement, a clock movement actually. It was a cheap Chinese 1.5 volt battery clock movement, and I'm just using the hour hand. But in order to synchronise it with lunar time, which is slightly longer than our day, by about 45-50 minutes roughly, I was able to pull the internal crystal using a small inductor, which was nothing more than about 8 or 9 turns of enamel wire around a matchstick in series with a 2-puff capacitor, and this was plonked across the crystal, and that pulled it near enough, well, near enough for me anyway. In order that this Perspex face is a completely tight seal to the front of the wooden block, I needed some form of gasket. Well, I wasn't going to try and cut this by hand, it never looks neat. So I made up a very simple circle cutter, and it's nothing more than a couple of pieces of wood, just to do this job. And as you can see at the top arm, there's a darning needle under the washer, and at the bottom one there's a modelling crafting knife, sharp crafting knife. Then I adjusted this to cut a perfect circle, and it worked very well. Anyway, more on this later. Okay, I'm back. That was yesterday. I've got an hour I can spare today, amongst the many chores and things I have to do and commitments. Anyway, back to the tide indicator. This is the back of the unit fitted, and I thought I'd done a rather clever thing here, whether I say so myself. The adjuster to the right of this square, I've cut a bolt, head off a bolt, a small little brass bolt, and I've arrowdited it to the adjuster, so I've got a slot, and I've positioned a hole on the back plate where it's mounted to coincide with this slot. And the idea being that inevitably over a period of time it will get out of sync and want adjusting, and it means I can do so without having to remove the indicator from its base. So I was quite pleased with that idea. Anyway, if I can come up here and get rid of this picture, that's the finished indicator I've made. I'm quite pleased with it. It was a nice little project to make. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. More on this maybe later. Well, 2 weeks later, it's still there. It hasn't been vandalised or stolen. Must have made it stronger than I thought. Anyway, this has been a very interesting little project. This is very early in the morning. As you can see, the sun has only just risen. Best time of day, really. Anyway, I've enjoyed making this. It means I've kept my hand in and used my brain on how to overcome problems, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. On that basis, I will consider commissions if anyone's interested, or if anyone would like to make suggestions or improvements. Feel free to comment. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, guys.